Welcome to the Light Home Sustainable Design podcast series. We talk with the architects and builders about green design and homes that really suit the way we love to live.
Welcome to Light Home. We're talking to Sean Godwin today. He's the Director of Base Architecture about one of their recent projects, Flinders, in Brighton, Queensland. Sean, can you just tell us a bit about the project, please?
Yeah, well, the project came to us from a retired couple who were looking for a sea change. They'd lived out in the in sort of a rural district, and they'd purchased this small lot in Brighton on the bay there, which was a 10 by 40 site. And coming from a rural spread, they obviously knew they had to downsize some things, and they were also obviously downsizing their life as such, and sort of came to us as a boutique firm to take on that challenge of getting efficient spaces and working to a fairly tight budget, and it being what they were claiming to be the last, I guess, place of residence, which was a bit of an honour to get, I think, in any respect, to do so. But obviously digging into their backgrounds and looking at particular, I guess, elements and items that they had that they wanted to bring along, and how we were going to fit all of those into this sort of tight space. The lot itself sits pretty much right on the bay at sea level, so there were some water height limits that we had to work with, which was kind of nice. It allowed us to elevate the house. But our approach to it was to certainly, I guess, take away the focus from a typical small lot, which is, drive in, double car, out you get into the front door and so on, whereas the view on this particular pad and the aspect was directly out to the bay, had a nice northeasterly aspect, and we wanted to get the main outdoor areas and rooms that could, take advantage of this view. So our approach was to get these, utilitarian type spaces, including storages and sheds and car accommodation to the rear of the property, and open up that front section. So that's probably a good summary of the project to start with.
Okay, so when you approach the house, the whole front of it is the front room, is that right?
Yeah, with a 10 metre lot, we decided to use 3 metres down the side to get the cars down, which and then we have a 1.5 metre setback on the other side, which left the remainder to be what we deem as an outdoor room, which is essentially a 5 by 5 type space that sits underneath the second level, which gives all of the, I guess, natural protection via the program of spaces above. And it has a lot of flexibility to it. It has some sliding screens to both sides to block out either prevailing winds or rain or breezes and or privacy for the properties as well. Yet on a beautiful day you can slide it all back and literally live out in that area. And it's an area that just comes simply off a one-room width home that runs the length of the site, which on that bottom level contains your kitchen, dining, living, outdoor experience, and then to the rear of the property on the lower level, just from an accessibility point of view, having a main bedroom and ensuite. And then the program upstairs is simply 2 bedrooms, pretty much for their kids and grandkids to kind of come and reside in. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't have built the upper level. They could have done away with literally that single level. But, obviously having to look at what is going to facilitate their lifestyle, and their lifestyle was to have grandkids come over and so forth, so having a space that they can play in outside of their main area was important to them.
Okay. And is there any other design features that you kind of worked into the house to make it more livable and more eco-friendly?
Look, I think intrinsically we do that anyway, and simple things of making it only the one-room width and no partitions between basically allows easy access of light penetration and solar gain into the house, and with just clever, or more to the point, simple, and what I would seem quite obvious locations of windows and apertures and openings, you're just able to break down the necessity for things like air conditioning and just keeping it really simple with the flow of spaces. And we created some dual height spaces internally for arrival that flowed the upper level into the lower level, but gave a sense of volume through the space without creating unnecessary areas. But it's all about that experience of kind of arriving into the house as well. So that was pretty critical for the house proper. I mean, there were some pragmatics that just had to happen from the perspective of the owner. He loves to dabble in gardening and has hobbies and craft, and he builds furniture and so forth, and getting some components for the rear of the property that facilitated that, yet still became part of the home, was pretty critical to him. And I mean, it's like a contemporary version of a sea shanty, really, where he can walk out the back and he knows where everything is, and it has its own place, and it's designed for him. And likewise with the pieces of furniture that they brought along, they had sentimental value, and he had made some things, and we just had to adapt them into the contemporary form that we had and make space for them so that they worked in with that, I guess, our outset, and without sort of turning our nose up at a piece of furniture that we may or may not have selected or seemed to feel that it was appropriate. We made it work so that they could have the best of both worlds, really.
So in many ways, did you almost design the house around the furniture?
Around the furniture and around them. I think customising, I mean, an architect, in my mind, has that ability to customise any type of abode or dwelling for someone, or a piece of furniture for that matter. So I think just getting to know the client was a really critical thing, and for them to be part of it and be collaborative and actually say, well, these are the pieces that we really want, and we then broke those furniture pieces down into, well, what pragmatics are they? What functionality are they? Are they purely like an art piece? And then we were able to arrange them in the house so that it facilitated each of those levels in the house.
Okay. And you said the house is basically right on the bay there, so it's exposed to the water and the space and that. What sorts of materials did you use to make sure that it's going to last against the elements?
Yeah, it is, once again, it's a critical thing, whether you're in the bush looking at things that need to have fire retardant, or when you're on the bay and you have a lot of salt build-up and winds and sort of driving rains, and you've got to look at anything right down to the paint systems that you use on anything. But in this particular project, it did have a nautical feel, I guess, about it, and the house itself sort of, I guess, relates to that in its, I guess, aesthetic and its form. But the material that we sort of wrapped the planning around was, once again, off the shelf and really simple. James Hardy linear board, which is, it's nice and true and level, and once it's there, it doesn't warp and buckle and twist, and we're able to put the appropriate paint finishes on that to sort of repel the environment as much as possible. But that mixed with also that kind of nostalgic view on history on a beach shack or a shanty was the simple use of fibre cement sheeting with, and what we choose to do is a random batten, so we get off the grid a little bit and make sure we cover off on all the water stops, but then just introduce another layer there for texture onto the surface as well. So those two are pretty much the two main products that we use, which sort of all dovetailed in pretty well with the form of the place that we created.
Okay, and I understand it's just won an award as well.
It has, yeah. Just received a regional commendation in the Brisbane Institute of Architects Awards last Friday. So that now goes on to the state level, which it'll go up against the other 6 or 7 regions in Queensland. And look, who knows? It had a simple little story to it. It's not a multi-million-dollar home, but it's probably one that I certainly put up as a bit of an example and a case study within our office as to how you still can achieve good construction rates with I guess basic planning and simple solutions rather than too many layers and too much gadgetry. It's really about the space for these people, and they love it. So that's, as far as I'm concerned, it sort of ticks the box in that realm.
Great. Well, congratulations on the award. Good luck with the next stage, and thanks very much for talking us through that.
No worries. Thank you.